Of all the white-collar criminals who have been in the news over the past 18 months, none of them has received more attention than Dr. Sam Waksal. An immunologist turned entrepreneur, Waksal developed a promising cancer drug, engineered the biggest deal in the history of biotechnology, and then self-destructed in an insider trading scandal that also led to the indictment of one of his most famous friends, Martha Stewart. This past summer, Waksal became the first CEO convicted in what's become a white-collar crime wave, and the first to go to prison for 7 long years. Tonight, he becomes the first to talk about his crimes in 2 long interviews that were conducted just before he went off to jail. How did you get into this mess?
It certainly wasn't because I thought about it carefully ahead of time. I think I was arrogant enough at the time to believe that I could cut corners, not care about details that were going on, and not think about consequences.
2 years ago, Sam Waksal was one of Wall Street's men of the moment. As the CEO of ImClone, he had just sold an interest in a new cancer drug called Erbitux to Bristol Myers for $2 billion. Everyone expected the drug would soon be approved by the Food and Drug Administration. But 3 months later, Waksal learned from a Bristol Myers executive that that wasn't going to happen. The FDA was refusing to consider the Erbitux application, not because the drug didn't work, but because the data was insufficient. New clinical trials would have to be conducted, and the price of ImClone stock was going to plummet.
What happened was that Sam Waksal did something very, very stupid. He told his daughter to sell her shares,
Knowing that the price was about to go down.
thinking that the price was about to go down. Yeah.
It's a matter of public record that you tried to sell some of your own shares.
79,000 shares. I had millions of shares at the time, and transferred those shares to Eliza, thinking that if she sold them, that was okay. I wasn't doing the selling.
79,000 shares, that's about $5 million worth, right?
That's correct.
You're a corporate officer. I mean, you're supposed to know that you can't do that, right?
Absolutely.
Did you know that the SEC routinely checks the names of relatives in stocks traded when there's a big drop?
Do I know that when I think about it? Absolutely. Did I think about it at the time? Obviously not. I just acted irresponsibly.
You must have known you were going to get caught, didn't you?
No, on the contrary, I was silly enough to believe that because it was such a de minimis amount of my holdings, and because I actually believed that we could rectify the situation with the FDA very quickly, I didn't think I was going to get caught at all.
At the time, Sam Waksal was a very wealthy man, at least on paper. He had made $60 million in the year 2000 and more than $70 million in 2001. But he led an extravagant lifestyle and, according to friends, felt a need to surround himself with powerful, successful people, to be considered a player.
How long have you lived here?
His Soho townhouse was lavishly furnished with a collection of important modern art.
And this is?
A Giacometti.
It's beautiful.
And his expenses approached $1 million a month, much of it to service $50 million in debt he'd incurred buying ImClone stock on margin. So when the price of the stock went down, so did his net worth. And he told us he had some short-term capital needs. When was the first time that you knew that you were in trouble?
When the SEC sent notice that they wanted to interview me.
And you met with them?
And I eventually met with them.
And you were less than honest with them?
I was.
Another mistake.
Another mistake.
By early 2002, the government was investigating trades by Waksal, his father, his daughter, and one of his best friends, Martha Stewart, who sold 4,000 shares of ImClone worth $230,000 the day before the bad news broke. When you had the meeting, you said the people from the SEC and the Justice Department were there. Did they ask you about Martha?
Yes.
A lot?
Yes.
Did you get the sense that they really wanted Martha Stewart?
Instead of me? No, I think they liked that they had me, and I think that I got the sense that if they could have Martha, they would be unbelievably happy campers.
But Waksal made it clear to the federal government that he did not give Martha Stewart inside information.
Whatever happened with Martha did not happen because she spoke to the CEO of IMCLAN. Period. She never did. Therefore, I didn't give Martha Stewart insider information. Period.
She's been one of your best friends. She's been one of your biggest backers, one of your biggest supporters personally, closest friend.
Martha called after she sold her shares to ask me what was going on at IMCLAN. Stock was dropping that day. There were millions of shares being sold. The rumor was out there on the street. I didn't return Martha's call.
With Martha Stewart's name attached to the scandal, Waksal found himself getting all the attention he once craved.
You swear that the
Only it was the wrong kind and at the worst possible time.
On the advice of counsel, I wish to assert my constitutional rights and respectfully decline to answer.
The Justice Department called it the summer of fraud.
I believe the
Enron and WorldCom had imploded. Millions of Americans had lost their life savings and were looking for blood.
I was there. I was just right in front of their sites, and I was easy because mine wasn't complicated. There were accountants and billions of dollars involved. It was real simple.
What's been the worst day for you?
The day I was arrested was a horrible day in my life.
Did you commit insider trading?
It is very difficult for someone who thinks about himself as someone who does good things for society to be led away in handcuffs and thought about as a common criminal.
Did you believe you were innocent at that time?
Did I know that I had committed an illegal act? Yeah, I knew. I tried to rationalize beyond rationality that I hadn't, right? It was sort of playing with linguistics, but I knew.
And so did federal prosecutors.
It was incredibly dumb, obviously, to try and dump that much stock on the eve of an important decision. It was like running around in your underwear in broad daylight.
But U.S. Attorney James Comey says the insider trading was just the beginning of Waksal's problems. When his office began looking into other aspects of Waksal's professional and personal life, they came up with a whole raft of additional charges.
There's that great event in baseball they call the cycle, right? If you hit a single, a double, a triple, and a homer in the same game. There is no cycle in white-collar crime, but if there were, he'd have hit it.
Besides insider trading, Waksal was charged with telling his father and his daughter to lie for him and directing an IMCLAN employee to destroy documents. He also forged the signature of a corporate officer to fraudulently obtain a bank loan, and he avoided more than $1 million in New York State sales tax by shipping $15 million in artwork he'd bought to an IMCLAN address in New Jersey.
Everybody has flaws. Everybody. What are your flaws that led to this happening?
I could sit there at the same time thinking that I was the most honest CEO that ever lived, and at the same time, I could glibly do something and rationalize it because I cut a corner, because I didn't think I was going to get caught. And who cared? Look at me. I'm doing X, so what difference does it make that I do a couple of things that aren't exactly kosher?
In fact, Sam Waksal had a long history of ethical lapses, reckless behavior, and embellishing the truth. He'd been dismissed from a number of academic and research positions for questionable conduct. One former colleague said, "Cutting corners for Sam was like substance abuse. He did it in every aspect of his life throughout his entire life."
One of my great faults is I refuse to deal with the everyday details that people have to deal with to make sure mistakes aren't made. And I think in that way, there may have been an arrogance where I didn't have to deal with details, that these details were meant for other people, not for me.
A certain carelessness?
A dramatic carelessness.
In the past, someone had always been there to give Waksal the benefit of the doubt, but this time there was no one to save him from himself. He pled guilty to 6 out of 13 counts, but not those involving his father.
What can you say about the negotiation process?
There wasn't one.
There wasn't one.
No.
Did the federal government use your daughter and use your father and use Martha Stewart to try and put pressure on you?
I think that the federal government does anything it can to win its cases. And if I were a prosecutor, I probably would too. You know, I think Martha can take care of herself. But to use my daughter, even to intimate that they would charge her because she tried to protect her dad, was irresponsible. Because it's just wrong. I mean, why do it? What do you gain? Who are you deterring? What, my 80-year-old father, who was a hero, who never did an illegal thing in his life? It just wasn't going to, I wasn't going to let that happen.
You took the bullet.
So to speak.
If he has come to the view that he is protecting his father and his daughter, that's a noble thing. I wish he had thought of that before he sent them in to the SEC to lie for him, and then he took the Fifth Amendment, which I didn't think was particularly noble. If he's come around to that view, that's a good thing from a human perspective.
I don't disagree with the U.S. Attorney. It was not a noble situation at that time.
We know what the infractions were from the indictment and what you pled guilty to. What were your sins?
My sins were getting a daughter involved in something that she knew nothing about. That's a horrible thing for a father to do. That's a sin. Putting my employees in a situation where the company that they worked for and loved was being mentioned in the same breath as Enron and WorldCom. And I look at that in many ways as a deplorable sin.
You draw a distinction between what you did and what people at WorldCom and Enron did.
Absolutely. I have a company where not one person has lost their job, where no one's 401k has been hurt. So is it different than WorldCom and Enron? I think so.
I wonder whether you're trying to rationalize some of this stuff. And it's almost like you're saying, well, I violated the law for insider trading, I committed bank fraud, and I cheated on my sales tax. But don't call me a corporate crook. It's like...
Absolutely. I know I did something that was wrong. And I know that I would have, in another point in time, gone to court, and I doubt that the U.S. Attorney, absent other situations, would have ever taken that case to court. This was done because the U.S. Attorney was trying to make an example out of me.
He says, look, I'm not like the people at Enron. I'm not like some of the other people that have caused the bubble to burst and millions of people to lose trillions of dollars in the stock market. What I did was personal. What I did was my own mistake. How do you respond to that?
I think part of that's fair. I mean, he is not someone who caused the collapse of WorldCom, for example, but those people are going to get a lot more jail time than he got. The folks who pled guilty in the WorldCom case are looking at in the upper teens to 20 years of jail without parole.
Sam Waksal says what the federal government wanted and what you wanted was to be able to stand up there at the news conference after the sentencing and say, Sam Waksal is going to jail for 7 years, and we are sending a message that this kind of behavior is not going to be tolerated. True?
Part of it, yeah. That's the reason I exist, is for general deterrence. I can't catch every crook. White-collar crooks look at the world, they read the paper, they watch TV, and what we're hoping is that they'll picture Sam Waksal as their hand is shaking to move a column of numbers from here to here. They'll think, geez, do I want to go to the pokey for 7 years? And they won't do it.
Has it sunk in yet that you're going to have to go away for 7 years?
I don't think that it's really going to sink in fully until the day I'm there and even afterwards.
Are you despondent?
No.
How would you describe your feelings?
I'm frightened. I am sad. I'm remorseful, and I wish I could turn the clock back and just change certain events at the end of December of 2001.
What have you learned from all of this?
Never break the law. Never lie to the U.S. government. If you've broken the law, don't talk to the U.S. government. But more importantly, I've learned not to be careless and not to be glib about things that you do. because they can destroy all of the good in one fell swoop. And I'm sorry that these events had to take place for me to learn that. But at least I've learned it.
Even in prison, Sam Waksal still has legal problems. His former company is suing him to recover a $7 million severance package, and he's named in more than 24 shareholder lawsuits against Imclone. As for Erbitux, the cancer drug Waksal helped develop, recent clinical trials have confirmed the promising results of earlier studies, and the drug could be licensed by the FDA within the next few months.